Hey, thank you all so much for joining another episode of Celeste the Therapist podcast. Um, if this is your first time in here, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. What I do on my podcast is I get to talk to people who are doing things to empower other people by sharing their story. But once a month, Jermaine Morris and I come on and we talk about ways to getting your mind right. So it's not about telling you like what to do or how to do it, but just like looking at the full picture. So I'll have you introduce yourself to my audience, Jermaine.
Hi, I'm Jermaine Morris. I'm a certified coach and consultant with a practice based around a DISC assessment, which is basically a test that shows how we deal with problems, how we interact with people, the type of pace we like to work at, how structured we are. It's a great tool to show how we are when everything is okay, and then who we become when we find ourselves under stress or under pressure. And it's good when applying to business, relationships, family dynamic, or just trying to understand ourselves a little bit better.
Yeah. And you have a website now. Tell people what your website is where they can like book you and learn more about you.
Yeah, mykeystome.com. So audio, mykeystome.com. And on that website, it kind of gives a little more information about the assessment, about scheduling a time for a free 15-minute consultation and kind of explain what happens and how what I do and how it goes and get more information there.
Nice. Good. I'll tell you guys now, it's a really great program that can help you have more tangible things to look at. Some people are more like they need it like spelled out, and it really spells things out to help you understand yourself better. Because that's the biggest thing is self awareness that we a lot of times we lack. And then speaking of self awareness, one of the things, so Jermaine like comes up with these topics and we discuss them, but one of the things that he wanted to digest is this idea of being aware of like the things that you may want and making it all or nothing, like maybe not really getting to that point and struggling when you're not getting to that point. And you've been seeing younger people lately, correct?
Yeah, something that we don't really has, in my opinion, has not been addressed enough. I kind of refer to COVID as like that Thanos snap, like in those Marvel movies where he snapped his fingers and people disappeared for 5 years, and then they
Mm,
just came back. Well,
mm,
that's kind of what COVID was for a lot of people. It's like they just lost 2 years.
mhm.
And for a lot of our young people who are especially like in high school, like their big years, like junior year, senior year, the ones that they've been, their whole education system been building them up
Yeah.
to, all of a sudden there was a snap of the fingers and they lost prom and their varsity year playing and all the stuff that they were going to do and build up to, and then they were just thrown back in and told, catch up, figure it out, and get in line. And so for a lot of them, they've been on a trajectory for
Mhm,
years that was just disrupted, and there was no real recourse or recovery to kind of reinstate them. They're
mhm,
just kind of
mhm.
told, "Here you go." And
Yeah.
so for a lot of them, we're having a lot of difficulty of trying to accept that the previous plan is over. Like all the stuff that, regardless of how long you've been working towards it, regardless of how much significance we've given it, that dream is done. You're
Mhm.
never getting your senior ball back. You're never getting to walk with your class at graduation. You're never getting to, and for a lot of people who are going to play a certain sport, which is going to set up their scholarships or something, those are
Oh,
no
yeah.
longer on the table. Like
Yeah, that's
uh,
true.
I was going to go to Texas playing football. Well, you didn't get to play your varsity year, so you're not. Like in whatever that plan was, we have a lot of our young people were just kind of told to just kind of get over it like everybody else, and that's been very difficult for a lot of them.
Yeah, I also think about around these years is where people are developing too.
Yeah.
And I know when, the pandemic hit and people didn't know what was going on and jobs and money. And so unfortunately, I feel like, kids were handed a tablet or a computer and school was there. A lot of, one of my sons, they had a dance, they had a dinner and one of the things that a senior dinner the teacher talked about is or one of the kids when he was doing a speech talked about having to learn independence early Right? Like parents still went to work. Here's your computer, like log on. And so, skipping these years of like being social and doing all those things on top of puberty and like going through those development stages, like I honestly believe people forgot about the kids.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
I mean, like, especially if you went in as a socially awkward
Yeah.
freshman, and then now you've grown 8 inches, you got a mustache now, you know, whatever, and now you're a senior on your way out.
Yeah.
Or if you were a sophomore and all of a sudden you're graduating.
Yeah.
Like, there was a social curve that never happened,
Yeah.
that you're now responsible to be aware of as an adult. There are, and like I said, I just don't think that there was a lot of, I don't think there was a lot of intentionality and reintegrating our 16, 17, 18, 19 year olds kind of
Mhm.
back into the system.
Mhm.
Like they were just so, and then I've seen that that's not just, I've been working with younger people more regularly, but I've found those same patterns have been present in adults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even with adults, even though it's not like the senior prom or things like that, one thing, because I don't work with kids, but for adults, I think it's the like now that outside is open, it was awkward being around all these people or having to go back to the office and engage with people. Like, I don't know if I know how to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of things where our mind is powerful. It adapted to the pandemic, right? And the isolation that we were doing for safety measures. And now that things have changed, people are told like it's like one day we're masking it and everything is
Yeah.
like strict, and the next day mid-air everything's off. It's like, it's math don't be mathing for me sometimes, and this really ain't working out.
I mean, we already, without
That's
getting too
another
deep
story
into,
though.
yeah, without getting too deep on how this was handled. For a lot of adult, well, a few things have happened with adults. One, some have realized that I don't want to go back to the reservation.
Yeah.
Like they
Yeah.
found an ability to work from home. They found a brand new direction to go to, and they have zero desire to go back to the way things were before.
Yeah.
Others do, and that's no longer there because some companies found, oh, it's actually cheaper for us to have you
So
stay home or
yeah.
to reduce hours or to reduce size, or we're doing these things. And so for some, they want to get back in and they can't. And they're trying. There's a lot of people who are still kind of up in the air on what to do when the rug gets pulled out from up under you. Now, some of us naturally adapt and scramble and figure stuff out quicker than others. But for those of us, say way back to like at the assessment, some of us who are so wired to continuity, to protocol, to structure, to a predictable way of doing stuff, like that's kind of just how they're wired. To have all this free fall and then no structure put back in, there's just a lot of them who are just who don't know how to, or having difficulty moving forward without a plan anymore. And so, what do you do when it's not even about an alteration to it? For a lot of people, like, what do I do now that my plan is gone?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think the barrier to why do you think some people struggle with like kind of adjusting? I'm really good at adjusting. It's just
Yeah.
who like I've always been this way. Um but some people do struggle with that change, and even if it's uh even if it's a change that's going to benefit them or a move they need to make, it's like there's a quote like you sit in your shit for so long you just stop smelling it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that for people that find themselves feeling stuck, I try to say feeling stuck because sometimes there are options that we can't quite see,
Yeah.
but the feeling comes into play. So they feel stuck, they see that they're stuck, but then there's no action. Why do you think that is?
So for some, if you've been built up your entire life to see life as a relay race, you're doing this to get to here. From here to, you're going to elementary school to middle school to high school to college your AA to your BA to your master's. You're moving constantly progression. Like everything you're doing is an A to B type relationship. So you've mapped out Like there's a way to gauge if you're successful or not, your grades, when you get promotions, how much you make, whatever. There's a way to rate where you're at to where you've been to where you're going. There's all these metrics that you can use to show if you're on pace to getting to where you're going to. Well, if all of a sudden those things are now all removed, like there is no, okay, I had 3 steps planned out, the next few things I was going to do. You're telling me I can't do that anymore. So now if I have to do something else, everything I did prior to this is now worthless.
Mhm.
Like, so then it's like your whole foundation of how you see things is no longer making sense. So for some people, it's getting past the idea of like, I've been going to school for so long for this. I've been setting myself up so much for that. And now you're telling me like to do something else?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, like, and so for some people that acceptance is hard because what they've been building themselves up for, the way that they've been seeing themselves. So this is kind of a theory. The difference is between being a human being versus a human being. And so both spelled the same. And so there's the human being, which is a noun,
Mhm.
and there's a human being which is a verb.
Mhm.
And so when we build ourselves up to being a human being noun, we are a thing. We're a doctor, we're an accountant, we're a mother, we're a student, we're a janitor. Like it's the thing that we are.
Yep.
And it gives us clarity in one respect, but a lot of limitations in others. That means this is the thing what I do, and everything else is kind of background or secondary.
Mhm.
Human being verb is I'm somebody who practices medicine. Like I'm just practicing medicine. Like I'm
Mhm.
mopping the floor. Like I'm raising some kids.
Mhm.
I'm teaching some classes. Like this is just what I'm doing,
Mhm.
not who I am.
Mhm.
So if you're one of the people who's wired to see yourself as the noun,
Mm.
and now that's been changed, if you don't have a noun to replace it with, it's what do I identify? Who am I now? What is my life supposed to be? What is, and so we have a lot of people who identify human being by way of noun. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 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 makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so you say, well, what are the challenges? That's the hard part. If you've
Yeah.
built yourself up to being a doctor and now you can't be a doctor anymore, who are you?
Mhm.
We have a lot of adults have that way who identify themselves as being parents. I'm a mother, I'm a father.
Mhm.
And now 25, 30 years later, when the last child has left the house, they have absolutely no idea who they are.
Mhm.
And so they're trying to micromanage their kid who lives 2,000 miles away because being a parent is all they've associated themselves with and who they are.
Right, right, right. Never like adapted to the change or even as they were changing,
Yeah,
never adapted. I get you see this in relationships too.
yeah,
It's literally marriage or even just like being together for a long time. When things don't work out because you're married to the idea of we're going to always be together, um even though you may be struggling in that relationship and it just doesn't work, you're sleeping in separate rooms, not talking to each other, you stay because this is what we're supposed to do and not like I think people feel like they can't see themselves out of a situation that they've been married to, like you said, like a idea of this is who I am, the foundation. When that's been like your outlook on your life, it's hard to turn and see the other opportunities that could be out there.
yeah. Because if I'm married, that's
Mhm.
what I am.
Mhm.
Then everything I have to do, even if it's horrible, we sleep in the separate rooms, we don't get
Mhm.
along, all that sort of stuff. I've built everything around that, as opposed to Jermaine, is a person who is married to somebody.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
well then we may not be anymore, but I'm still
Right, right,
Jermaine.
right. Yeah.
But if I'm married, is what I am, then I have to be that to be this. And so for some of us, we are so married, we have changed the plan and made the plan the person.
Mhm.
And so we can't derail from the plan because without the plan, we don't know who we are.
Yeah. It's important to understand that. And there's the fear of change is real. Sometimes at jobs when they went from like a lot of jobs are basically computer now, but
Yeah.
we're getting rid of the paper to the computer or whatever kind of thing that they're trying to implement. A lot of times it's actually better for the job, but because you're so used to it being a certain way, you struggle with change. So even if, the change that's happening is good, that can feel scary too when it's all it's something for people to think about.
Yeah, and being okay with the change that comes, because it will.
Mhm.
Um, and then, like I said, the difference of is, do I see myself as this is who I am, or do I see myself as this what I do?
Mhm.
Because if this is what I do, then I can do other things.
Yeah.
I'm doing this, and I used to do that, and 5 years now, I may be doing this.
Mhm.
Like, I'm still me though.
Yeah.
But when I make who I am this thing, this entity, I've really painted myself into a corner because I don't even start to exercise other options or look into other things because this is what I am. And
Mhm.
so that's how we get ourselves in positions where we lose hobbies and other interests and other relationships and other avenues because we pigeonhole ourselves into one particular thing. um, and then you're really putting all your eggs in one basket on that particular thing having to work out, because
Mhm.
if there's anything that goes wrong with that, I said, then we can find ourselves in those spaces.
Yeah, that's so true. And I'm hoping like when people hear this, they can really start thinking about like who am I, not what do I do? Because you're right, a lot of people define themselves by what they do. Um, and so when that changes or that needs to change,
Right.
it's hard for it to take place.
Yeah, what am I outside of my job?
Yeah.
What am I outside of these little people's parent, or so and so spouse, or whatever title or position? And like I said, that's like looking at the difference. Do I see myself as a human being or a human being? You
Mhm.
know, am I in the world having experiences and relationships, and whatever I'm doing is what I happen to be doing, or do I see myself as this particular title?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, because I think one of the issues is that when we get labeled with the title and the title doesn't work out, that fear of starting over can leave a lot of us stagnant. Like we're staying in places longer than we should,
Mhm.
with people that we don't need to be around anymore,
Yeah.
in situations that are problematic, because the problematic situation seems less troublesome than dealing with the fear of starting over,
Mhm.
you know.
I I tell people, when you say the problematic situations makes more sense than starting over, and also, I think when you sometimes people may be used to chaos,
Yeah,
that they continue to create chaos and stay in chaos. So, sometimes when you're in these situations and you're asking yourself, like, why am I here? Why am I still here? I can't stand this or that, and it's just like look at your upbringing and kind of pay attention to what that was like because more likely than not it's a familiar like unfortunately a familiar situation to your system, which is why like you've been staying, but that doesn't mean you have to stay.
exactly. Yeah. The upbringing is huge. The
Mhm.
what am I used to dealing with? I mean, I think most of us at some point, and if you haven't yet, you will. We worked at that job with somebody who's been there longer than anybody, but with more complaints than
I
everybody
know.
else put all together. Like, man, you hate it here so much, but you've been here for like 20 years.
I know.
Like, yeah, but you talk to the people who've been in a relationship with somebody, and every word they got to say is negative about the person that they with. Why don't y'all just break up? I ain't trying to be out here. Like, just and we'll stay in situations that we know are not healthy, that we know are problematic. But we've now identified ourselves by that thing. Now
Yeah.
I'm Willie from the post office. Why don't you quit the post office, man? You be talking about you hate this job every time I show up. Yeah, but everybody know me as the postman. Like built an entire world and identity
Yeah.
around this job, around this relationship, around these behaviors or this thing. Uh, and so that fear of starting over, like I said, I think keeps us, too many of us, um, in two situations, either stuck in the bad problematic situation that we're in, or basically purgatory. We don't move one way or the other.
Mhm.
Like, you'll hear about people who've been single for 20 years, and they're telling you the reason why they don't date is because of a bad relationship they had back in 2003.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
you do know there's other people out here, right?
Mhm.
Like, they don't move at all. because of a bad experience or a series of bad experiences. That fear of starting over gets to the point to where it leads to just zero action.
Yeah.
And then you become the identification of is almost a victimization identification.
Mhm.
You there's a negative association to everything new, and so you just stay just stagnant,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that's not better either.
It's not, no. It seems like it's safe, but, the turmoil that your insides are going through. I tell people to pay attention to, like, the changes in your body, your sleep. Some people may find themselves, you said earlier, eating, right? Like,
Yeah,
getting control back through food, or um it's not, sometimes it's not really clear when you keep yourself like stuck in that way. It's not clear all the areas of your life that is disrupted.
yeah,
But a lot of times it could happen physically, like it could, like meaning like you may have some medical conditions because your system breaks down. Like, we're not supposed to stay in a state of stress.
yeah,
That it's not the stress. Like, when we're stressed out, or when there's things going on, the amygdala gets activated, and we're supposed to like work on something, but we keep our activated, then our system slowly breaks down. And so one of the things I want to talk about is, like, we are talking about the fear, and just how COVID has created some stagnation. And like, what would you say are some steps to help people get to where they want to be? Because some people may be like, I don't know what life is supposed to look like, or I don't have any idea on where to start. Like, how would you start off with these people?
so if you're, I guess these are different people. So if you're one of the people that had a plan that plan no longer exists, so you're like you were forced to do something else. Like, it's not an option. It doesn't matter which way you look at this. Whatever you were on trajectory you're on is no longer there for you. Is about then really having the honest conversation of, okay, well, it's almost having the funeral for that life. Like, there has to be that level of closure, and just I can't keep going back to, but I could have and I should have, and I you literally have to lay that idea to rest and say, okay, from here on out, what do I want to do? Like, what is it that actually excites me about life? What is that's going on? Like, find some direction to go into, to start moving, even if it's like, go back to school, take some classes in something. If it's, let me start asking around. Let me, this is, information age. There's a group for everything. Like, you can put feelers out to see, what other things are out there, and just to start testing the waters to see what, talking to other people, because as much as it feels like these things are just happening to us, there's a lot of people in this exact same space. So reaching out and not feeling like this is just something you have to take by yourself, but actually finding information and comfort in community.
I like that community aspect because when you're by yourself, alone with your thoughts, it's like filled with all the negative noise that you've heard over the years.
Yeah.
On top of the fear, it's hard. But if you were to, like you said, put feelers out, this is an information age. There's a lot of ways that we can get information just from our phone. And so, like, I always tell people, like, start where you are and use what you have. Unfortunately, we'll look at what we don't have and be like, well, like, let's say I only have a phone, but if I had a computer, it would have been easier to like look at this website. And it's like, okay, but I don't have the computer. Let me work with the phone. Yeah, it's a little bit more challenging to do it that way, but like, it's better than nothing. Like, I really want people to work on having that kind of mentality when it comes to the things that they're struggling with.
Yeah, and so one of the things that when I work with somebody, when we start talking about having to take steps, is it's twofold. So number one is that I am in control. I am responsible for my life. I'm responsible for my happiness. I'm responsible for how my day goes. I'm responsible for the outcome of my life. Like, starting off using a series of affirmations of adapting that this is me. Like, I'm the one that's behind the wheel of this situation. And the second tier to that is, I get to be in control of my life. I get to be in control of my happiness. I get to be responsible for my outcomes, and showing a form of gratitude that you get that you're in a position that not only are you in control of what you get of what you're going to do, but I appreciate the fact that I get to. Like, I think for a lot of us, we see the starting over, the growing, the learning, we see it as a daunting responsibility as opposed to a gracious appreciation for the fact that we can still create and build the life that we want. And so when we look at life in the sense of, no, I get to carve a new path. Like, I get to start over. I get to pick a new direction. I get to find something I'm passionate about. And then it's up to me to make the most of that decision.
Mm-hmm.
That so it does a few things. One, where it gives a sense of control, which a lot of us find alternative means when we find ourselves kind of spiraling. That's what we talked about previously. People develop, eating disorders, or turn to substance abuse, or try to find
Mm-hmm.
control in other areas because they don't feel like they have it in life.
Mm-hmm.
When you address and adapt the idea of, no, I'm taking control of this stuff, it helps in that department. And
Yeah.
then saying, I'm appreciative of the fact that I'm in control. I'm
Mm-hmm.
appreciative of the fact that I'm responsible.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people walking the face of the earth who do not get as much say so in how their life is going to go.
Yeah.
And so I'm responsible for the outcome. I'm responsible for what I do with my life, and I'm appreciative of the fact that I get to start. I get to start over. I have the chance to build something new. I have the opportunity to learn something else or go in a different direction. And so, for somebody who's just getting started, about recognizing that we are responsible for it, and then being gracious of the fact that we have the ability to do something about it.
That's good. I want to say two things. I want to say, the idea of having this gratitude for people that may say, but that's not how I really feel. I would challenge you to do it and say it anyways, because your mind is listening to what the noise that you're speaking, right? Sometimes when I'm working with people and they say things about themselves and it comes out so negative, and I was like, I was like, "Can you say that one more time? Did you hear what you just said?" And then they say it again and be like, wow, like that was kind of rough. And I said, yeah, like if you're saying that to me out loud in this session, that means your mind is consistently thinking in that way. So I want you to be mindful that, the affirmations and even the ones he just listed are really great to do, even if you don't feel that way, because your mind and body eventually kind of falls in line in the direction that you're taking it. And it does start, I think, with power of your words. I think words do hold power. So really being mindful of that is dang, there was one more thought I wanted to say. So I wanted to say that part about the affirmation, and then I forgot the second part. It's gonna come to me. But
Yeah.
what are your thoughts about that, the affirmation piece?
Yeah, so I know for some people, they're like, oh man, that affirmation stuff. I don't read The Secret. I don't do like, they don't get it. So kind of with the premise of, I always like to work off is self-awareness without judgment.
Mhm.
So we're removing the good, bad, right, wrong stuff. So we're just looking at this as math. We're reprogramming our brain to the way that we see things, the perspective that we have about them, and then the behavior will fall in line accordingly based upon the way we see it in our perspective. So if you're starting with the affirmations of saying, I'm responsible for this, I'm retraining myself to believe that I'm the one who's going to make these changes. So I'm not waiting for somebody, some third party, to come in and save me. I'm not waiting for somebody with a cape on and a letter on their chest to swoop down and change my situation. So
Mhm.
I'm taking responsibility for it. And then the gracious aspect, where I'm saying, I get to make these decisions. I get to make these changes the wiring also, to where we're not saying to ourselves, I
Mhm.
have to. No, it's I get to. And
Mhm.
just the brain knowing the difference in vocabulary has a different
Mhm.
association to the word, which then
Mhm.
changes the perspective, which in line with the behavior. So forget if you believe in the affirmations, or reading the tea leaves and all that. Just the math. The math of changing the verbiage and the way that we speak to ourselves consistently will change the way we look at something and change the behavior attached to it.
Yeah, that's really good. The second when you said I get to take responsibility, it reminded me what I wanted to say. Um, for people, even if it's not your fault, right? Because I think a lot of times people get caught up in the situation that they're in. Sometimes it's not because we made the wrong turn or made a choice, it's because something has happened. So even if it's not your fault, saying that still is beneficial and helpful, because like the the realness of the situation is that like no one's gonna come and save us. You know, when you're over 18, it's your responsibility to be okay regardless of what's happened. And it's okay to like grieve, and it's okay to be upset about what has happened. But then it's not okay to stop your life. Like I think like really like thinking about like the pain that you may be feeling around like fault and responsibility, um knowing that it's not your fault, but to have a good life, or to have a life of purpose and meaningfulness, you got to take responsibility. So yeah, that when you said that, it just cued on what I wanted to say for people that might be thinking in that way.
Yeah, so in the mire of judgment and all that muck and stuff, it's all guilt, blame, shame, fear, all that stuff is lying in the judgment aspect.
Hmm.
So when we're saying, okay, without judgment, I, I'm I am responsible for what I do with my life. I may not be the one that got me here. I may not be. Some of us have been in car accidents, and the person who hit us didn't have insurance, and we had liability. So there's a financial situation, and maybe medical bills. All this. This accident was not my fault. Like, but it's going to be my responsibility now with what the rest of my life looks like.
Yeah.
Like, and so I can sit there and say that 15 years later, my life is not what I wanted. Well, there was that one car accident. I was supposed to be doing this, and that car came out of nowhere, and you're still stuck in the space of blaming that person and resenting the life that didn't happen, and all these things that because that one incident was not your fault, and then you're stuck there. It's still the summer of 2007, and you're still talking shoulda, woulda, coulda dreams, instead of saying that accident may not be my fault, but it's going to be my responsibility to develop whatever life I want to make after that. And I get to do so.
Yeah.
I get to make new decisions to counterbalance that thing that was not my fault. And so if that requires drafting other people, getting people who've been there before, talk, like I said, working within community, if that means we have to go for different education, if that means we need to seek out help, you go to counseling, therapy, what we need to work on, if that means whatever that looks like, we have the responsibility to ourselves to go out and find them, and then we get to do that.
Hmm.
We get to do the like I think that human beings sell ourselves so short
Hmm.
about the abilities that we have as an entity in this world. Like, you can literally create a brand new life whenever you want to.
Hmm.
Like, nobody in my family did this. Everybody went to school and everybody became a mechanic. Okay, you could be a rodeo clown if you want to.
Hmm.
Who says you have to be a mechanic? Like, you can you can join the circus if you want to.
Yeah, but I will point out though, especially with family dynamics, especially I noticed this more with like Caribbean people from the islands and
Yeah.
other countries, not so much American. I'm American. American families I don't feel like they put as much pressure on their kids about what they do. So like even though we're saying like you could do what you want to do, understand that it's going to be hard, saying that to the family member that has already put you in the family business before you was even born.
Yes. That's where you have to look at some point. You have to have the discussion with yourself
Yeah.
that sit across the table from you and you, and figure out what's more important.
Mhm.
Because you can have that thing where there's the family business, and everyone just knew you were supposed to pass the baton and take this and that,
Yeah.
and then you decide, I either A, want to do what the plan that's set out for me, or B, I want to do something else. And whatever decision that is, be able to live with that decision.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean go into the family business that you begrudged your dreams and then you hate everybody associated with the family business, because it's not what you wanted to do. Or you did what you wanted to do and you can't get over why they resent you.
Mhm.
Like, like you might have to come to terms with that as well. Like, okay, well, I'm gonna
Mhm.
ruffle some feathers doing what I want to do, but I care more about that than I
Yeah,
do this.
yeah,
And that's not easy. So I
it's
don't want to
not.
seem like it's a light-hearted, it's just it's going to be challenging whichever direction you go.
Yeah,
Uh, but it's to say is okay. Well, choose your hard. Which hard are you? Can you live with more? Can you
yeah,
live with a life that you feel like you're not living your true authentic self, or do you realize that you're living the life that you want to live, and it just comes with not everybody will share your dream.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but
That's why that self-dialogue is good with people aren't sharing your dream and especially when your dream isn't harming anybody
yeah,
else. When you have that self-dialogue, the affirmation of like, I get to choose what I want to do. And there's so much more peace in that, honestly.
yeah. Yeah, and I understand was certain cultures will tell you there's certain staples of professions. You need to be a doctor, you need to be an accountant, you need to be attorney, because they're universally accepted as successful.
Mhm.
They financially come with a check that's, puts you in a certain bracket, which comes with a certain degree of status. And there are a lot of people who, especially if you're the son or daughter of an immigrant, those are usually the first places they want you to be because all the
Mhm.
stuff that's attached to it. But
Mhm.
even if that's not the case and your family has dreams for you and what you want to do is off the reservation, even if it's not that grandiose, you may grow up in a whole Christian household and you decide you want to practice, you want to be a Muslim.
Mhm.
Well, nobody in your family agrees with that. You know what I mean? You may say that everybody lives in this small town and they've never left the state, and you decide you want to go out and traveling the world. Well,
Mhm.
nobody does that where you're from.
Mhm.
You're the first one to go to college. You're the first one to start your own business. You're the first one. Like, there's going to be a lot of decisions that we get to make that are
Yeah.
not a part of where we come from.
Mhm.
And so there's the point of where we say that, okay, I got but so much time on this planet in this form, and I get to start to carve out a life that I want. And, and that I understand that everybody may not agree with that.
Yeah, and that's I mean, when I say it's okay, meaning like it's gonna be a hard concept, but the more you affirm yourself,
Yeah.
the more you recognize like it's gonna be okay. And like Jermaine said, choosing your heart, because sometimes people come to me and I'm like, you know what you need to do. It's like, but it's like that's the hard thing. You're looking for an easy route, and there's no easy
Yeah.
way around
Yeah,
it.
that's what I'm saying. Well, which is the easier choice? Who said either one was easy?
Yeah, if it was easy, everybody
Yeah,
would live.
yeah. You know what I mean? It's really it's if you said that I want to work a job for the next 30 years and retire, and you find a job and you have people after so many years, half your age, telling you what to do, micromanage. You can only get your 2 weeks vacation off a year. You're missing kids' recitals and stuff, but it's to get a job. You're like,
Mhm,
okay, there's lots of stuff that comes with that. He's like, well, I don't want a job. I want to run my own business. Okay. But now you're 100% responsible for everything, for payroll,
mhm,
for inventory.
yeah,
If a light bulb goes out, you're missing family functions. You're the first one there. You're the last one to go, but you got the freedom of the business that you created. Neither one is quote unquote easy. You're just choosing which one is more in alignment with you. You choose your hard. Running your own business is hard. Working for somebody else is hard. You just choose your hard. Which one can you live with more? Which one is more in alignment that allows you to be yourself in a space that you're okay with?
mhm,
Marriage is hard.
yeah,
Being single is hard.
yeah.
Pick choose
You
your
know,
hard.
what people look at when things go hard, when things feel challenging, they look at everything they don't have, or they'd say, well, if
Yeah.
I was, they'll be in New York, and then it's like, New York sucks. I can't, Texas is better. They go to Texas, be like, man, I miss New York. And
And
it's like,
everybody in Texas is telling you how much it sucks.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, we run away from just facing the truth or looking at things and adding gratitude to the table is
Yeah.
important. And I do want people to know that if you're still breathing, there's room for change.
Yeah.
um, when you brought up the job scenario, when you was talking about that, I also think about people, when let's say that we talked about like being at a job for 20 years, not liking it. It's not like you could just quit your job, right? Because we know like that's not something that can happen. But if you had a plan and thinking about like, let me start doing research, let me go on LinkedIn and see what's out there.
Yeah.
So if you like start creating a plan and actually action steps, you'll be surprised like that job won't feel as hard because you're looking at all your options. When it seems like you don't have any options and you're just at that job and you're not doing anything to create change, then and that part of that change, maybe you picked up a passion project, you wanted to always take up guitar, you start taking up guitar on YouTube, learning there, and then maybe getting it like so. A lot of times it's because we ruminate on these things that we're struggling with instead of either coming up with a plan or developing something that's good where it's not life is not revolving around the
Yeah.
struggle. Because it could be something small like let's say you're working somewhere 25 hours a week, but you can allow it to take up your whole week. Saturday come, oh, I got to go there Monday, and it's like, what about Saturday? Let's just enjoy Saturday.
I know people who have felt their whole week was ruined because they had to go. They got a speeding ticket. They got it out there where you at. We got to go to traffic school on the weekends. You have those out
Traffic
there
school?
where
No.
you get speeding tickets, and then you go to. They send you to traffic school so you can get the point removed.
Oh, no, we don't have that.
Yeah, so they make you take if depending upon what your ticket was for, because your insurance goes up and all that stuff goes up when you
Yeah,
get a
yeah.
point. So
Oh,
they give you out.
you could go to school to take your points off in
Yeah,
California?
yeah.
Oh, you
So
can't
they
do
would
that
send
here
you
in
to
Massachusetts.
traffic school, and you got to sit through this class, and you got to do all this sort of stuff, whatever, and take these tests, whatever. And if you complete all the stuff, you can get the point removed.
Hmm.
And so I know people who are just like, their whole week is ruined because they got to do this on a Saturday. You mean so this 8-hour thing you got to do on Saturday ruins your entire 7-day week? That one dinner you have to go to next Thursday means you're gonna complain about it for 7 days in a
Yep.
row. You know, this one thing, this one situation, this one incident, if that's what you focus on,
Yep.
then that will be you'll have a horrible week. You'll have a
You
horrible
will.
day. You spilled your coffee at 8 a.m. on your way to work, and now it's 5:15 and you're saying you had a horrible day. Didn't you get another coffee at lunch? Yeah, but I mean, but still, like what we focus on. So when we say that these things that are happening, I can make changes.
Yes.
I get to make changes. And
Yes.
that means I have to rework the plan, call some audibles, or even just start from scratch.
Yeah.
You know, um, I get to do that, and I think that's great. We're saying for some of us, we have situations to where if you work at the post office for 20 years and you still got 2 kids under 18, you're
Yep.
not quitting.
Yeah. Yeah.
The benefits and all that stuff. I got
Yeah.
this mortgage, and I got 2 kids going to college. Like I'm
Right.
not quit, but there is things to find the
Yeah.
perspective aspect of
Yes.
I get to provide for these children with this job. I
Yes.
get to keep them in a home because of this profession. I
Yes.
get these days off to then go do A, B, and C. Like
Mhm.
implementing the gratitude aspect of it changes all the stuff we
So
have to do
so good.
to
So
the
good.
things that we get to do. Like I
Yeah.
get I get to I get to go to a job that I'm financially taken care of with full medical, dental, vision, and my children are cared for.
Mhm.
Like I get to do that. That is not the case for 90% of the planet.
Mhm.
And so I with the things that I get to do. And so like I say, just implementing the degree of responsibility that it is us, that we're not waiting for somebody else to save us, and then gratitude, the appreciation that we are in a position to do these things for us drastically changes our perspective to what's going on with us.
I love this dialogue a lot. This is really good. And it's we'll be in July, January, March, April, May, June. Yeah, so 7 months into the year. Um and it's summertime for well, like I know where you are in California. It's pretty much nice, but
It's
um
104 out here.
yeah. So, with the vitamin D from the sun and stuff
Yeah,
in these cold weather states, I think that sometimes, we can get just stagnant in the things that we need to be doing. Hopefully listening to this is like a little wake up to just like, you know what, like I really want to make sure like I'm working through these things.
yeah.
I'm being consistent, especially with outside being open after 2 years.
Everybody
Um,
outside.
Everybody's outside.
Everybody outside.
So, I just want people like the discipline and the consistency is important. Um, Especially for growth. I don't see myself, I haven't arrived. I'm still growing. And I just want people to be encouraged to keep growing regardless of like how outside is open, or the issues are still there. No matter if we party, I used to party every weekend to get rid of to ignore my issues. I said that in quotation marks for my audio listeners, to
Yeah.
ignore my issues. And the issues are still there. So this was a great dialogue for people that feel like they're stuck in like life, to just like think about, what can I do right now? How can I use what I have and start where I'm at?
Yeah, I think it's so important just to keep in mind that regardless of whatever it is that's going on, that it
Mhm.
can be different.
Mhm.
Um, that it's important that we take responsibility for it being different,
Mhm. Yeah.
and then appreciate the fact that we have a chance to make it different.
Yeah. That's good.
And I think in doing that, regardless of whatever the situation, so it doesn't mean that the circumstances instantly becomes better, but it is a huge shift in thinking that somebody's going to come and rescue me
Mhm.
versus understanding that I have an opportunity to save myself,
Yeah. That's
and
good.
that I am responsible for saving myself.
Mhm.
And when the day so comes where I want to start moving forward, I get to save myself.
Mhm.
And wherever we end up after this, our perspective is so different in our belief in ourselves and what can happen, because we know I took accountability for my life. I was responsible for what happened, and I'm in a place that I wanted to be. So I'm not worried about this happening again.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
I know I'm capable of
Mhm.
of changing my situation, and I know I'm capable of helping myself to be okay.
Mhm. That's good. I love that. Thank you so much. This was amazing. Let people again know how they can reach you. So Jermaine, the even one of the ways you can learn about like yourself, and the blinders that to look out for, or the way you are maybe under stress and the way you are at baseline, is this disc assessment that we talked about at the beginning. So that's one way, and get your free 15-minute consultation, like if you had further questions about it. But you can let people to know how they can find that.
Yeah, so the website is mykeystome.com, mykeystome, mykeystome.com. And like I said, that gives for further information and to set up a consultation. And the disc assessment itself, it comes with, if you just so decided to take the test, it comes with a 22-page report about you, about your potential blind spots in behavior, the most effective, least effective ways to communicate with you. Um, like I said, it's ideal when we work in corporate stuff about, like, when it comes to jobs working, but really knowing who we are as a person. And then it gives us the language to relate to somebody else. So when it works in relationships or family dynamic, or even when we're just trying to express what's happening with us, it's like, here's actual data that goes along with how I feel.
Mhm.
And here's the words to use to articulate it to somebody else. So we have a better understanding of how I am, who I am, how I operate, and the things that I respond to. So mykeystome.com is about the assessment. Every other social media platform, everything, it's all at J Morris CEO.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Everybody
Always a pleasure.
loves your quotes. And I was at a cookout the other day, and this girl was like, "Oh, I was listening to the podcast," and she couldn't remember who she was listening to, who I was with. But she said, "Man, this thing stuck out for me. If you can't hold people accountable for boundaries you never set." I'm like, "Oh yeah, that was Jermaine." She was like, "Look, I wrote it down." She showed it to me. I was like, "Yeah, that was mad deep." She's like, "I've been thinking about that since I listened to it, and I can't get it out of my head." And now I'd be like, "Well, did you set those boundaries?" So, you have a way of saying things that like hit people where they just can't get it out of their head. So
I
thank
appreciate the fact that anybody gets it. You know, I'm forever running my mouth. And so I say, I always appreciate this. I say all the time, you're my favorite person in mental health.
thank
I always enjoy and appreciate the conversations. And that's why I enjoy sharing them with other people, and for them to listen to this, even if I'm not on it. I always enjoy the conversations and dialogue.
Thank you. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next